Frenzy Podcast.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy Podcast, and as always, my good friend, Mr. Brent Parker.
What are we talking about WandaVision?
Last time you and I actually talked about it was what? Episode
4?
4, I believe. Is that right, bud?
That sounds right. 4 or 5. Yeah, it's right around there.
I'd say after like 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 were very consistent, I thought. I thought pretty much they were all 9s all across the board. I thought it was just consistent storytelling. I'm from the South now.
It's a Western. You've done it right. Storytelling.
I'm getting excited for the Westerns. Okay, so anyways, listen, fellows. That's like the finger. Is that considered scary?
I was nervous. I thought you were robbing me through the internet. I thought that was it. It was over with those fascinating finger guns of yours.
No, I really enjoyed it. I felt the only thing I did not like was I think that Agatha, they Disneyed her up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I want a Game of Thrones of witch story. That's what I want. And Witcher definitely has elements of it, but I don't want that kind of witch. I want like a slow 5-season, 6-season transformation piece of a witch who kind of started off as, I want to kind of learn the ways either of the dark side or the light side, and it shows the dark side like the transformation slowly. And I've just been wanting to see something like that for a long time. And Agatha, even though I loved everything they did with her, I felt like they kind of just had to like throw the safe version out. And even though Catherine Hahn herself was killing it, I just felt like a little bit shy of what they should have done with her.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be surprised. I wanted it to be a little different than what it was. Here's what I appreciated. Agatha was great. It was great she was around there doing stuff. She wasn't pulling all the strings, right? She was manipulating Wanda, but she wasn't pulling all the strings. And I appreciated that. That.
Yes, you brought it up. You brought it up the last one that you said, hey, I kind of hope that Agatha's not just saying, hey, I'm the bad person now. And then Wanda's like, oh, thank God you freed me. You actually wanted Wanda to kind of be the villain. And she
kind of was. It was, and I think that's a fair thing. I think.
No, I agree.
I like that they did a little bit of that touch on it where they're like, okay, you didn't mean to do this, but you were kind of in your own perfect space. And so, all your emotions, everything kind of overran and you kind of lost track of what you were doing per se. And I liked that. I think it was good.
Yes.
Part of me still wishes maybe they would have gone full version of like, no, I knew it was going on, but I'm super, super selfish, and this is where I stayed. And I think we got that towards the end. However, I think we could tell towards the end it was a huge strain on her. Particularly, there's one thing when Vision is first questioning everything, and I really like the subtlety of this performance that Olsen gave, because she goes, what, do you think I'm making sure everybody gets around and does everything they want all the time, and they go to their dentist appointments? You can tell she's frustrated, and it's a genuine thing that actually happened. And then to the subtlety of the performance. So I did enjoy that we got the hint that she was the villain, but it wasn't, again, like her purposely being cruel, and it was more of like a panic mode of like, I have everything I want, how do I keep this, and how do I keep everybody safe, and how do I... And so I get that. I think we can empathize with that, and that was okay. However, I do think the end where she just kind of got to like, whatever, and no one got in trouble, kind of. I get it, it's Wanda. How do you get her in trouble? But
the person, Wanda should have gotten in trouble, and of course she can't, and I understand that. But I think one thing that was a big misfall was whenever Monica walked up to her and said, these people will never know what you sacrificed for them. And I'm thinking, that's bullshit. You literally enslaved all these people to do your bidding, and then Monica said that weird thing, and then she of course Wanda was like, well, I mean, I did some things too, and I'm like, well, no, you did all of it. And then whenever you find out what Agatha was doing, she wasn't even doing anything. I mean, the worst thing she was doing is someone was like zapping one of the people, and they'd be like, oh, let me say something else instead, but they weren't being like manipulated like physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally like Wanda was doing it. I felt like if you want to see a villain, you got Wanda, but the problem is at the end they try to make her situation just, and it's not just. But I will say though, Brent, I think the best thing about this was not the writing, not the visual effects, but the acting from these two characters.
I would agree. I mean, I think, I would say Elizabeth Olsen and who plays Vision, he's great. Paul Bettany. Yep. Both did a fantastic job. And here's what I find fascinating about them. I think it's great that a lot of us have this idea in our background, in the back of our mind, that it's like, Yes, they have a relationship and they fall in love. I think we all have this layering of like, we understand that of the WandaVision thing, right? Scarlet Witch and Vision, they fall in love. That's been a staple in the Marvel history for a long, long time. However, unless you're a real fan of it, I don't think you get to see the lengths of the emotion until this show. Until this particular show, we all finally got to like get in on that a little bit, and it was actually really fascinating, especially the end. I think, and I told this to Crystal, I thought what would be harder for me if I knew my kids were going. You know,
yeah, and they play that off, and I think they were trying to just gently like go away from the fact of the matter that her two babies were about ready to die too.
Yeah, and I think
and it was, and I told my wife afterwards, I was like, they're trying to like, and they did it a good way, or the best way they could have. But at the end of the day, no, she destroyed them too. I mean, they were real beings. They just happened to not be real once you leave that little area, and it was, and then they were heroes because they were saving their mom, and they were being superheroes themselves, and then you got kind of accustomed to like them being badasses, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, mama, good night, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, they're about ready to die.
And I thought that was, but I mean,
they their bed going, oh, what's happening to me?
I know, right? And I thought, I get it, it's Disney, like how intense can they get watching that? You know what's happening, and I was just surprised the length of like, she had her perfect family. Like for me, I think that would have been a much more beautiful scene if they'd all been together. That would have been way more impactful. I would have died. I would have cried like a baby.
That's not a bad idea. But then again, I think
you have to show the kids being deleted. I don't think you can do that with Disney. I don't think you can. It's like, okay, look at it, they're gonna fade away and they're gonna be destroyed. Yeah. It's like that Disney's not gonna cross that line to a certain degree. It
would be memorable though, and these are things like you and I have had long discussions about why Game of Thrones could have been the best show of all time, is because they would make those kind of decisions where like, oh no, we're going to have this happen, guys, and you're not going to be able to get away from it.
Yep.
But it's going to be very poetic and somber and beautiful and artistic, and you're going to cry and you're going to have joy whenever that person gets theirs for killing that kid. And there's always a full circle to a lot of things, but and Vision, Paul Bettany, I tell you what, don't get me wrong, Elizabeth Olsen, she did steal the show. I mean, and she better off. She was the main person, but she did steal it. But Paul Bettany, his little, like you said, his little mannerisms. Wanda, what are you doing? And like he's starting to kind of you see it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're so good at conveying what you're trying to do.
Yeah. The subtlety of his performance of both. He does a great job because you could have that whole scene without a whole lot of facial features and stuff and still get your message across. However, he feels confused. We feel confused because he feels confused, and that's a unique talent to make your audience empathize that much with what you're doing through your performance, I think. And especially, I tell Crystal, their best scene in that whole show, the very best scene, is either the very end or their argument. Their argument is so startlingly
which argument are you talking
good.
About? There's a couple arguments.
The very first one, where the credits roll and we feel safe and comfortable, and then it breaks that wall in 1,000 pieces. And when they argue, that was amazing. That I felt uncomfortable and excited and scared. It was awesome because you got to see the real dynamic of their relationship beyond this, like, we're in love, we love each other, it's fine, everything's going to be okay. We got to see a real relationship where, shit gets rocky sometimes, we get upset, and then we do argue, we yell, we scream, and particularly in their environment, there's a lot going on to question and be upset about. So watching them, that was probably the best. And watching Paul Bettany admit, like, I'm scared, I don't know what's happening, but he did it with that passion of he was genuinely angry and scared. And what a great, just again, his performance nails it. And again, Elizabeth Olsen does a great job of just consistently conveying that, like, I kind of know what's going on, but I don't want to change it because this is perfect. Everybody go away. This paranoia and this intense need to keep things safe and the same.
And the beautiful thing about that too is we are watching her mind unfold. We're watching it about ready to just blow up, and we see all of it. And the cool thing about this is like watching that one movie, the Pixar one, Inside Out, Disney Pixar. It's kind of like that in a way, but it's showing. Like whenever she would like lose her mind, you'd see the glitch happen. And all of a sudden you start seeing like the change in the 50s to 60s, 70s. You just see it, like she's having a mental breakdown, and we're seeing it like psychedelically and physically, and everything's manifesting. And we see, so we obviously know that she's going through so much torture and pain because we're seeing it. And then, but Vision, he like you said, the little subtle little nuances of him just like Wanda. And then whenever like that happened and the credits start going, and then
Dude.
she kind of walks away and he kind of grabs her. He's like, Wanda, I'm scared. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting there going, geez, man.
It was
And I like,
unnerving.
Wanda, tell him, because you're scaring him. Tell
Yeah.
him.
You love him. Tell him. Be honest with the man. And I think
Yeah.
Chris and I talked about this too. One of the best selling points of that scene. It changed the show. It changed it to a degree where like we got into a pattern of, you know, they did the bit, the show ended, the credits rolled, we were good, right? We got into that pattern, and then that episode happens, and she doesn't want to deal with it. And that's the end of the episode, credits roll, but all of a sudden, we are taken out of our comfort zone of like, that's what we know about sitcoms. Sitcoms end, we see the credits, there's the music, and that's everybody's happy ever after. We come back.
Yeah,
next
you don't
week.
hear them. They're all smiling and doing this little
it's
thing.
over, right?
Yeah.
Right. The show is over. We're going to come back to the new adventure, but
Yeah.
everything's going to stay the same. However, that was a turning point in the show, and I think it was really important they utilized that particular moment to not only impact, obviously make us uncomfortable and show us, hey, things aren't all right. It's not a sitcom. You're not watching a sitcom. Pay attention what's going on. And then they break
Right,
that wall and
right.
they break us out of our comfort zone of that idea of like, oh, credits, everything's good. Wait, they're still going. Oh God, they're fighting. What's happening? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Wait, oh God, he's nervous.
Yeah.
Wait, they're yelling.
And then you see a superhero like Vision who is like all knowing, literally like whimper like a small child looking up to his mother. He doesn't know what's happening, and it was just, I don't know if it was Paul Bettany's genius, if it was the great writing, but
Mhm.
I remember my heart hurt really bad. I was like, and I really was thinking like, you bitch, you need to tell him right now because that's your man and he loves you.
Yeah.
It was hard to look at, man.
It was,
So,
and it was cool to see
yeah.
those cracks kind of come through. But we should do
Mhm.
another episode. We should just do, God, we should almost do a sit down and just chat about WandaVision one of these days. And
yeah,
just,
I'm down with that. I'm going to be cutting down some stuff. So like I said, when I'm doing a lot of this, we can cut this. Okay, so we're going to be good to go, guys. Or maybe I should leave it in because it's part of the joke now. I don't even know what I'm
that
gonna
one
do
you might have
with
to
it.
leave. That might have to stay because now people will watch. Just do like a subliminal cut of a scene where like we're talking and then just flash that for a frame, you know, just in and there, and we'll send secret messages, you know. Hey, Satan! Hey, you know, it'll be like dark stuff like that one.
Bow to your leader, the Dark Lord.
There you go. Track. So, Nick, first off, I just want to dive into this. Okay, you know, we both love Westerns. I have a particular love, and I have picked 3. We don't have to get to all 3, but I have picked my 3 favorite Westerns. But I want to start by saying, what is it about Westerns, just in a very concise way, that you think draws you to them? What makes you go, oh my God, Western, let's watch it because it's a Western, you know, just that idea.
I think that's a very good question, by the way, Brent. I think the best way of looking at it, if you want to break it down into the simplest of forms, it just makes you feel like a manly man when you watch it. You're watching manly men do manly things. You're watching scum of the earth villains who like to do rape and stuff, getting what's theirs at the end by the manly man walking in town that no one knows. He takes the girl he wants. She looks at him. You know, they make love. Well, they don't make love. You know, they have sex because he lets her know afterwards, I'm done with you. And then he gets in there and just blows 400 people away. And you can't help but go, like, even though all these things are kind of like wrong, you're kind of my hero. So I don't know what to do.
I there's the thing about Westerns with the idea of like, you know, the man, the internal struggle of man versus nature, and then man versus the wild, so to speak. And, you know, always that struggle for conquest or for success to a certain degree is always kind of drawn me. And I always forget how impactful that is to me. And again, we're seeing, you know, these, especially like more modern Westerns, we're seeing a lot more accurate depictions perhaps of like aggressive, hard, trail-ridden men who, and women at this point now, but are just, there is something about the feel of a Western that is so unique to its genre. And I mean, and I say that under the cover of action movies. I think you can try and take a lot of action movies and say, okay, well, this Western action movie and this Die Hard movie, you know, they're roughly the same thing, you know? And that's how it works, but it's really not.
That's actually, I mean, I would say the comparison with the Bruce Willis type character, because he doesn't even fill the void that other 80s and 90s action stars fill. You probably feel that cowboy void.
He could have
like,
done that for sure. I mean, obviously John McClane feels very cowboy in his whole thing, but I
yes,
think the
and he is
important,
very much the self-centered kind of prick who still saves the day because you know it's better. You know?
yeah, and I like that, and I also like, but I like the I would say kind of the grit, the dirt, and just the Westerns have a very particular feel. It's almost like you kind of get that sun-beaten vibe when you watch a Western. You get that whole intense kind of like wild, untamed savagery in a Western. And you can show, I think, that in any action film, but it just doesn't have the same flavor. It's like when the hero and the bad guy in any action film fight, you know, and it's that final brawl where they're going to get everything out, one of them's going down, you get a sense of that brutality there. But in any Western you pick up, it is a whole nother layer. I mean, Bone Tomahawk's a really good example you can look at of like the brutality of the West. I think Open Range does a really great scene of the brutality of the West that really lends itself to that genre. And I think that's what draws me to it, is that I love action films, but there is an extra layer in what is being portrayed or what is kind of being shown in Westerns. I think a really good example is I just watched Revenant, and one thing about that I think it's a great Western, but I think it's a great art piece, is a lot of the shooting in those films, a lot of the scenery and a lot of the still shots, particularly within Westerns, and exceptionally well done in The Revenant, is how it makes you feel connected to the film. The Revenant is definitely about loss and being alone. There is a huge statement in there, and some of those shots are hauntingly beautiful, but you will watch that film, and if you don't walk away feeling a little hollow for a little while, you weren't paying attention, because it is done and developed in such a way to make you feel that loss, that distance from that character. You just want to try and comfort and help him, but everywhere throughout
the
there.
Shot, though. The last shot does that. I mean, it's doing that little pan around him, and he's kind of just showing. He's just sitting there, just looking at like past the camera for like 45 seconds, just going. And all of a sudden, he just looks at the camera. He just looks exhausted. And, you know, obviously, we see that adventure. It's so funny you brought up Revenant, because I was a little scared to bring up Jeremiah Johnson for that very reason, too, because they both have a very mountain man movie feel. And I don't know if it would be considered a cowboy movie. But then I was talking to some people, and they were telling me, no, they're definitely cowboy movies, because what's more cowboy than
man
the
versus
idea
nature.
of surviving out in, you know. So is it any kind of movie that conveys this idea of like, hey, me and it's nature and it's survival. Like now, you and I, we're pretty much good to go. But back in the day, if you weren't tough, you died for sure.
Yep. Oh yeah, and even if you were tough, shit, you probably died for no reason anyway. You know.
No, seriously, you just get some kind of like, oh, I got bit by a horsefly and
you got cholera.
Died 2 weeks later.
You get cholera, you die. That's it.
There's certain movies, like you said, Open Range, and there's one thing that, because Kevin Costner, for me, he does very good pieces like Dance with Wolves and Open Range. These are I think would be his forte more than anything else, because when you see him in another kind of movie, sometimes it doesn't work for him, sometimes it does, but Robert Duvall, though, I mean, this guy, first of all, I don't know how you feel about Lonesome Dove, but I was raised off of that, and it is my soul.
Yeah, Lonesome Dove is titular Western. And I mean, like, pop Western to a certain, but it's, if you guys haven't seen Lonesome Dove, I won't get into it too much. It's an older, you need to go watch it. Go look it up, Lonesome Dove. Check it out, and enjoy it for what it is. Robert Duvall is fascinating, does great work in it.
Tommy Lee Jones, and then there's a lot of characters you'll see in there that you're like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
But it's a TV show, but it was kind of one of those first shows where they started, because what was this, 80s?
Yeah, that was mid 80s. I want to say
80s, and they were trying to make a solid Western, but it was it was like a limited series, and it was excellent. So it was kind of the first push. But Robert Duvall, you can put him in any kind of thing. Of course, with Open Range, I love seeing just his face, the way he was kind of tutoring Kevin Costner, and kind of like I'm a man, I'm the old man here, and you will respect me. And I loved it.
His tutor, I think his character was great. As far as Robert Duvall does great work, and particularly in Westerns, he has a look and a gravelly sound that the man fits. I mean, you can't, if you're going to typecast somebody in a Western, you should probably reach over towards Mr. Duvall, because he's great. That being said, the relationship where he doesn't ask a lot of questions of the main character played by Mr. Costner, right? Kevin Costner? Not crazy here? So I get Kevin Costner and the guy who did, help me, House of Cards confused sometimes because I'm an idiot. Anyway.
Well, as long as it's not Better Call Saul, because he tries to use that in Better Call Saul. He goes, I'm Kevin Costner.
Oh, my God.
Do you remember that?
Oh, my God.
And he'd be able to sleep with a couple women before doing that. And then they woke up in his apartment, and they're like, you're not Kevin Costner.
Oh, my God. My point being, their relationship between the two is very that I am the old hand. I am here to guide you and make you a ranch hand, because I'm not going to ask questions to see where you came from, but I see you can do your job and you can do work, and that's what I want.
What would you think about Clint Eastwood or John Wayne?
Oh, man, I'm an Eastwood guy. But I'm only Eastwood because John Wayne was a little bit... I I've seen them, but it's a little bit before my time, just collectively as far as like
Well, technically, so is Clint Eastwood, though.
a little bit. But my dad watched a lot of Clint Eastwood, which is where my love for Western also comes from, is internally in my family.
That's where mine did too. It came from my dad, which came from Clint Eastwood, probably more than John Wayne. So yeah.
Yeah, and I assume my dad did more of. I assume my dad grew up on Wayne, but I think when the spaghetti and Western really hit, because Wayne did classic Westerns, classic.
Yeah, he did the true hero kind of typically.
I'm the good
I think
guy.
it was only every once, like, Rooster Cogburn, he was kind of a prick, but for the most part, he was always like all right, I'll do it because that's the right thing. Where Clint Eastwood's like, go away.
Yeah, Clint says, I will shoot you. You got what, $6 in your pocket? I will kill you, sir. Yeah. And that's the thing, though. The attitude changed, too, in the spaghetti Western. When you watch the John Wayne to any spaghetti Western, doesn't even matter, it doesn't have to be Clint Eastwood or not, there is a much different structure to the film, a much different photo techniques used, and it's really done. And then this is going to sound mean. I don't mean it to. John Wayne came from a golden era of film with stage sets and a lot of like steady, solid shots without a lot of emotion per se.
Sure.
It was much more play-like.
There's nothing wrong with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was one of the pioneers. His stuff's gonna look a little silly. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then when we transition over to the spaghetti Western, we suddenly get these very like tight, gritty, condensed, aggressive stories.
Yeah, harsh.
There we go. That's the term I want. And it really changed, like, to me, what a Western is. I mean, that's what I base Westerns off of. If there's not that level of harshness just out there, it's hard for me to enjoy a Western. And I'm not saying the things they do is right or good. It's just the idea that I expect a tone from a Western, and spaghetti Westerns and any good Western from that on out have that tone of brutality, of ruthlessness. I mean, God, Fistful of Dollars is probably my titular. If you're going to write a Western, watch that film, do what it does, and then just add a different character in there in a different town and a different gunfight. Because that film hits it on the head. I mean, the second one, I think it's cool because they step it up and they do something a little bit different from it, and they basically introduce another hard individual, another hard character, which I think is fascinating and fun to watch because them pursuing the same thing and watching them interact is always humorous. I think what I really like about, and what I think is so captivating about A Fistful of Dollars is, one, the cleverness of him. He puts the plate on, and he has it under his thing. And when he walks into town, he's like, bam! And he's just like, bah! And he does the whole scene of him like getting shot over and over and just taking his time and doing his thing that's so freaking brutal, and it's so Western. It's so like one man versus a town, and it gets dirty and it gets raw, and there he's being clever. Like, God, that's Western, man. It's like it's like having a Western without a gunfight nowadays. You can't not have it. The Quick and the Dead. Come on, what a setup! And all that was gunfights. We were just pulled into characters we wanted to win the tournament, and it was like so obscene. Like the idea behind the Quick and the Dead was like one man runs a town, and you can fight him and get money if you win by shooting the guy who runs the town if you're faster.
It's a crazy notion too, and the law was being put out. And watching Deadwood, I remember because it was kind of a slow burn for that one too. But I remember thinking, these are people who moved to an area that are blocking themselves from the rest of the world so they can keep on being cowboys.
Yeah,
and this is all based on real events. And then what's the guy's name who Hearst? George Hearst,
yeah,
William Hearst, and all those. And then these are real people, and it shows them as villains and stuff. William Randolph Hearst, and then George Hearst or whatever. And it's just funny that these westerns that we love all come from either real stories or real concept of what the West was like in the 1800s, and it's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, I love the idea of like. I mean, I always think it's fascinating. There's so many places that have a feudal history, right? You have feudal Japan, you have feudal Europe, you have feudal China. You have a whole bunch of this feudal system and everything, but no other nation has a Western expansion like the U.S. No other nation has this very particular pocket of time where we were pushing the boundaries of our territory. We were not great as a race, but we were fighting constantly. We were, again, you had to be this hard-driven individual, man, woman, child, didn't matter. You had to have some extra something to make it through and get across these deserts and then find value in these places on top of it. The West is such a fascinating timepiece because you can really make such fascinating stories, even without going too far. I mean, like, The Revenant is a really, really overproportioned thing. It's blown completely out of, like, what the story actually is. However, the fact that they found a story that was so easy to turn into something so despairing and dark and beautiful through just a little bit a little bit of influence from what that time was like. From what, again, this is a little bit for our full Western Expanse. This is more towards, you know, the northern trade and more mountain man times. I can't remember what the hell that was called. But the point is, we have a fascinating history in that pocket, and that's why I love it. I love just the inspiration you pull from it, and despite that I've seen basically the same thing done in Westerns over 100 times, I want to see more of it. I don't know why I want to see a town in peril and have one man walk in, clean it up. I don't know why that is so captivating.
Yeah, and we see it in so many different forms too, like with the Mandalorian and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
We love seeing these characters, and the cool thing about a lot of these people, like Wyatt Earp and stuff like that, is there were these like 4 guys walking around blowing all these bad guys away, and I mean, I don't know if they were exaggerated that much, but just to know that there was a time when a guy would point a gun at you and say, "I'm going to kill you," and another guy would point a gun at you saying, I'm going to kill you too. And they both had the balls to go through with it. I mean,
yeah, that's
now
madness.
You and I are sitting there like, oh, it's a gun. Oh my God, run.
Dude, don't shoot me. I'm 100% on that train. Do not shoot me. That is crazy talk. And like that, and then like the idea that, I mean, like in the West, you can even look up the obituary stuff for like people dying over card games. The idea that you could sit and gamble at a table, get upset, draw your gun, shoot somebody, or be shot back over $22. It's like, it's, what? Like, I can't believe.
And it was justified. It was like, but hey, he $22. Like, oh,
that man cheated at cards. Shot him. Like, it's what a crazy way to live your life. And and again, despite the cruelties of it, what a free way to live your life. And I'm not condoning that behavior. I'm just saying, I don't think you can be more free than like if you sit down and you know your life could possibly be endangered just by playing a game of cards at a saloon, and then it escalates to that point, and you have the freedom then to choose, like, okay, I shoot this guy or not. And that is a wild way to live. That is insane to me. That is crazy.
Yeah, you had the option almost. And like I said, it's one of those things where, I mean, yeah, they still sometimes probably had a jury or whatnot, but I think it was to the point where it's like, hey, the guy spit on me and I did not like it, so I killed him. And like, well, I mean, I don't like being spit on either, so I mean, I get it.
The man's a cheat. You got to shoot cheat. Like that argument, that, you know, instead of like locking someone in jail or something, again, the argument you can make for that time is just, it's crazy to me. I think the game Red Dead Redemption 2 particularly is a really good example, I think, of walking around the West sometimes and getting to experience that in a virtual setting, because you can play cards, and if things don't go, you just stand up and be like, all right, I didn't get up, bap, 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 and that's that. I mean, it's like, what the hell? But you can do it. Or again, if the idea that if someone offends you, you know, you go in the middle of the street at noon and shoot each other, and whoever walks away calls it good. What?
And that's the story that's told too. That's like that's the story that we know. Is the winner's story. The loser's might have been the good guy. You know? So
absolutely true. And then, you know, the UK had this. You know, UK had dueling, but it blows my mind how. Again, it's just crazy. What a way to live. No long-term honor system. Just you're pissed off and you're like, you know what? I'd shoot you. You know what? Fuck it, shoot me. I'll see you at noon. And all of a sudden, you both show up. You both show up at noon and you shoot at each other.
I know, and not to like curse each other and be like, yeah, you better run. Not to like punch each other 2 or 3 times. No, to end each other's lives. To
extinguish a human life. So the West is fascinating, and I think that's our draw, right? The drama of the West, because of that, because of the wild stories, like you said, and all these taller than life characters that came out of it. It's a fascinating and just wild time. Second favorite Western, since now that we've watered
I'll do my 3. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll get my 3 done right now. So again, you guys know Open Range, and I'm going to defend Open Range by just saying cinematography and Kevin Costner in the final gunfight. Best final gunfight possibly in any Western is in Open Range. 110%.
And realistic. I think that's why I liked it a lot.
Me too.
It was realistic.
They get behind shit and they stay low. They take shots when they can, and it's a very tense and it's a very great gunfight, and it's really it's intense and different than a lot of other Westerns, so completely worth watching that. 310 to Yuma. The story itself wanders.
Which one, bud?
The remake, the most recent.
Okay, cool. A lot of people don't know that as a remake. I figured you did. That's why I didn't want to insult you. But yeah, okay. Yeah. Just like because the original's not bad. It's just it's not Russell Crowe. I mean,
it's not Russell Crowe. It's not Ben Foster, and it's not
Christian Bale.
Batman,
Yeah.
Christian Bale. But that being said, that the story of that one is really what sells it more than anything. And then watching how the characters interact with each other and the cruelty and savagery of the outlaw himself is brutal. That dude is. I would have shot his ass halfway through that trip. I'd have said, "Hell no, you didn't." Goodbye.
By the way, I have this argument with my dad. Maybe you can clarify since you are also a wise man. I still feel at the end of that movie, even though I'm glad Russell Crowe does shoot Ben Foster to because he shot Christian Bale, I feel like the most loyal person in that fucking movie
easy.
was Ben Foster.
Yes, yes,
and he was loyal, but he finally got to Russell Crowe after all that shit that all of his friends were like, "Hey, Russell Crowe, he didn't deserve to live. Bye." And he's like, he kills him. He's like, "No, but how dare you? That's our man." And he gets there and he gets shot. So
yeah, no,
I don't know,
that is one of the best twists in that whole film is that watching that dude respect Christian Bale so much, watching Russell Crowe respect Christian Bale so much and wanting him to see it all the way through, that he assists him in getting him to the train to show he can get it done, that he can be successful. And then the bond they formed in a weird way that he respects, and watching Christian Bale get shot and how his eyes just glaze. And what I love about that character throughout the whole film, he's a bad dude. You can't sit there and watch Russell Crowe and be like, he's just trying to live his best life as an outlaw and live free.
Yeah, no, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy in all counts.
100%.
The only thing and one thing about his character that makes it hard to not hate him is he's very intelligent.
Oh, he's intelligent, well spoken.
Yeah, he's very well spoken. He's classy whenever he needs to be, and it's very hard to not be kind of amused by that kind of control.
Well, to be charmed by it, that charisma. And I think the simmering violence, they do a great job of showing a few things where this man, though, is a violent man. He will kill at the drop of a hat. And the ending where he shoots Ben, where his anger gets out of control, and all he sees is who made him mad and who pissed him off. And then it didn't matter. He had no sense of loyalty at all. And I thought that was a fascinating twist. How do you get someone that loyal to you when basically all you've done is rob, steal, and kill, and that's what they would expect from any given moment? How do you possibly get someone who's like, no, that's the man, we gotta stick with him, we're gonna go, right into the lion's den, and we're gonna get there, and we're gonna get our man back? He, in my opinion, he hasn't really done anything to earn that, and yet for some reason, Ben Foster, loyal to the end, and he dies for it. He dies really shittily, because Crowe's got no loyalty. None.
And he gives him that look, though. Ben Foster gives that look that Ben Foster gives that makes him such a powerful actor. He kind of is like, why?
Yeah.
And I'm there going like, yeah, you little bastard, tell him before he dies. Hey, it's not you. It's not personal. It's not personal, man. I love you.
I really like that guy, and you fucking shot him. Like, that's what he should. He could have yelled that to him. And then
we formed a friendship, man. I get it. It's kind of weird, but we formed, Stockholm syndrome kind of a
you
thing.
You need to pay attention. God damn it, Ben. And then third and final, I mentioned this before for me, is A Fistful of Dollars. A Fistful of Dollars, the first spaghetti western in my opinion, and the best spaghetti western in my opinion. You can go back and watch that film and really enjoy it for the wild and weird soundtrack, the great new kind of way westerns are being shot, and also it's one of Clint Eastwood's first roles. It might be his first role if I recall, where he's the main individual. And it's just good. It's good. It's a good western.
It's definitely his main out of the spaghetti three. That's for sure.
For sure. So that's mine.
By the way, mentioning anything with the spaghetti westerns, I have to mention Ennio Morricone. He does music. You were just talking about the music. I mean, and the trio that I hear in Good, Bad, and the Ugly is they're all circling. The three of them are circling, and it literally it's like 5 minutes of this song, and they're just showing them looking at each other. And it's the harshest 5 minutes because you're sitting there going, just do it, and they don't do it. They just keep on showing it. Like Family Guy does that thing every once in a while too. They do it. Family Guy does it be annoying, but this was just keeping the pressure going and going and going and going. And it was because Ennio Morricone, this beautiful Italian composer who figured a way to make westerns, even though he was Italian. And anyways, I had to bring that up, but because you said Fistful of Dollars, and it definitely, and the music definitely needs to be added to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said it. I said music because it has a different audio and it just has a different everything, and particularly the soundtrack to it is so different from anything previous to it in westerns. It's so very different. It has a strangeness to it. It has an eeriness. It has a weird kind of hollowness, but it's also kind of I don't know. It's not something I would listen to just on a Sunday, but in those films, if it was any other audio, I would hate it. I would hate that wasn't there because it fits it so well. It fits it so very well. So those are my 3. Those are my reasons. Go watch them. Open Range, 310 to Yuma, the new remake, and for a fistful of dollars.
But good choices, by the way, buddy. I like all 3 of those movies. Number 1, Tombstone. It's something that, even though it's not the best Western, it is my favorite Western, and that's probably because
good cast.
I think that, first of all, the story is a true story. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but a true story who a lot of people don't know is not directed by George Cosmos. It's directed by Kurt Russell himself, but he couldn't legally tell anyone because the studio would shut him down, and he actually added a lot more parts for everyone else. And took a lot of his screen time away, so then a lot of the other characters could have their fill too, and that is why Doc himself was so awesome. Well, not just because of Val Kilmer, but because he had a lot more lines and stuff to make his character a lot better. So Tombstone for that. I love the whole thing whenever Kurt Russell's walking out there and he's just tired of it. He just goes, no, and he just starts walking out there and just shooting at everyone and just blowing everyone away. And then they're like, hey, where'd Wyatt go? And he's just like, oh, just walking on water. So I was just kind of pretty much implying that Jesus just walked in and just blew everyone away and didn't get shot once. And it was kind of like they're all watching it and they're all like almost mystified. And of course, Kurt Russell is awesome, and his mustache was sexy. And then you can't take it. Val Kilmer was great. I don't know. Maybe he stole the show.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people in that movie. Michael Biehn was good Ringo. There was so many good people in that movie. So Tombstone. My second one's going to be Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, that is a good film. That is just. Go ahead. Sorry, good film.
No, and I think the biggest reason is, first of all, Clint Eastwood has been writing, editing, directing, acting, singing in most of his movies he's ever done. And a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, he's the kind of a one-trick pony," and I'm thinking, do you realize what he has done?
Yeah, no.
But Unforgiven, why it's his best performance in terms of acting wise, was it shows a man who's very flawed. He's in his probably 50s or 60s. And he talks about how he used to kill and rape and pillage back with Morgan Freeman back in the days. But then he met his wife and he became a Christian man because she was a good Christian woman. And it just, you see this sprinkled out through his performance throughout the whole thing. And he's just trying to do the right thing. But then he hears about, he needs money because his family is hurting. So he goes out and goes with Morgan Freeman. And then anyways, after all this whole thing, you're seeing this connection with beautiful Morgan Freeman, beautiful Clint Eastwood with Gene Hackman, who's this badass. He's not, and the good thing about this villain too is he's not really a villain, Brent. He's just kind of like the town sheriff who's kind of a prick, but he's not really a bad guy. Just kind of like every once in a while, just a little corrupt. But he's still like, the 3 of them together was magnetic.
Yeah, Unforgiven has a cast that will blow you away just on that alone. And then, their performance together and the gray areas that film just hangs out in. The name for it, I think, is perfect because when you find out about it, all 3 of those individuals are all just, to a certain degree, morally lost people. Clint Eastwood is about the only one the whole time looking for a sense of morals. Morgan Freeman don't got him. The sheriff, he teeters the line of being a effective sheriff, but definitely not within the realm of morality that you would normally suspect or hang out in. It's a very slow burn.
Clint Eastwood, so he gets in town a little later because Morgan Freeman goes in first, and then Morgan Freeman gets shot by Gene Hackman. And when Clint Eastwood gets in town, he sees Morgan Freeman's character just standing there in a coffin, dead. And then you just see Clint Eastwood he gets pissed, and he walks in, and it's simple. It's like you said, it's a slow burn. There's no like big old badass shootout scene. He just walks in, he just looks at him, and he talks for a minute, and then finally he shoots Gene Hackman right in the gut. And then Gene Hackman falls down. He's just like, I don't deserve this. And Clint Eastwood goes, deserving has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, dude, what a great. Oh, yeah.
Like, this is not a typical Western because you see these men who are flawed and they talk about how they're flawed. And then they still have to do that one last ride because they're like, I don't, what else is there?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, so there's that. There's 2 for me. And the third one, this is kind of hard, but it went all over the place. But at the end of the day, I would say it would be Jeremiah Johnson. And it's mainly because I've always been interested in the idea of survival. And like The Revenant, in fact, I would say that Revenant probably was inspired by this movie. And this movie came out 50 years before it. And I felt like here's a guy, a city man. He decides, I'm tired of the city life. I'm going to go out and live in the country. and he sucks at it and almost dies many times. He's starving, and then there's one guy who's been living there all of his life, teaches him how to hunt and stuff. So then the rest of the movie, you see this guy progress into this man's man, but it's not like a walking around beating people up kind of thing. And then he finds himself a little shuffle with some Native Americans, and they end up befriending each other, and then they end up giving him one of his women. And so he takes the woman, he starts building a house, and then the woman dies. So then he goes and he kills the couple of Native Americans that killed her. And then the rest of the movie is him just defending himself. And it just kind of shows the life of this man who just kind of wanted to live his life.
Watching that man's transformation is still kind of captivating in its own way. And I would say The Revenant, I would agree. And again, we don't watch him he's been a survivalist, but watching him utilize the tools is just like watching Jeremiah utilize the tools.
So it's one of those things that I feel like most movies have to have been inspired by something. And yeah, it was a cool story, but yeah, I think it was all came from that Jeremiah Johnson kind of life. I think that would probably be my third one. Yeah.
That's a good pick. I think that's really good. I'm glad that your third one ended up being, again, I personally think that lands within the realm of Western. Certainly, again, man versus nature is an absolute consistent theme in any Western. I could talk to you for hours. This is insane. And it's not insane to me. It's just great. I just love that I can just talk to you for hours and I'm like, okay, you got to keep it condensed. You got to get there. We could do this. No, I loved this whole conversation and I'm glad we didn't because I love conversing about all these great, especially Westerns. I think, God, we both have such a passion for them.
Let's go ahead and pick from The Cup of Destiny.
The Cup of Destiny. I'm ready. That was really good.
Thank you. William Henry Boyce Jr. Love you, buddy. All right, I got a long one. I literally just did a bunch of weird sheets one day to start cutting it, and then this might even...
I hope it's one word. That's just one small word.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Okay, I don't know what that means. Underrated movies.
I'm going to talk about one film the whole time. I'm going to talk about one, maybe two, and it's going to be great. I'm going to yell about The Raid a lot. I'm going to scream about that until...
Is Raid underrated, would you say, or just not known in America? I'm not just probably known where it's, was it Thailand? Not Thailand. Where's it from?
No, Malaysia, Thailand. I'd have to look it up again. Indonesia. I think it's Indonesia.
Indonesia, yeah. They're all kind of very close to each other. You and I have been there, a couple of those places, so we know. Yeah, The Raid is, I would say, I saw it and I thought it was amazing. I only heard about it because of other Navy people. That's when I got out. No one's ever really talked about it since then, but if you like martial arts movies, I'm sure you know about it.
Yeah, if you have any like inkling to like martial art films, that was a film that came out of nowhere. That came out of just left field. It went through so many different iterations, everything else. And I say it's an underrated film, and the reason I say that is because I think there was a lot of unique things they did, camera work wise. They built an entire mount. Exactly, the stunt work was amazing, and they built an entire mount for a lot of different things they did. They made a camera and a globe, basically, that as they moved around them, they kind of steered it. It was fascinating to see. You can see it in all their extra features. Kind
of how Daredevil was formed, wasn't it? They wanted to take that process?
Kind of, yeah, a bit of it. I know they drew a little inspiration, particularly from like the martial arts and the movement in that. But I think The Raid is just one of those where, like, because it's Indonesian, I think it a lot of people slept on it. So that's the film I'll probably scream about for that. And then I'll probably talk about Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I love that movie. I try to get my wife to watch it, and we watched about 10 minutes of it, and she looked at me and she's like, no, this is stupid. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not.
It's not, but it is. But it's good. It's really good. In its way, it's fascinating because it's funny.
It makes fun of the horror genre in such a beautiful manner.
It really does.
And anything that what's the guy's name? I always forget his name, even though he's brilliant.
He's in everything.
Firefly, always great. The pirate in Dodgeball. I mean, he's always silly and always wacky, but he's a good voice actor too. But that's a good choice.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk. Yeah.
Tudyk. So those are the two I'll talk about probably a lot.
Okay, this is gonna be fun because I'm thinking like I just thought of Monster Squad now. So,
please, I love that.
You and I've talked about that before.
Okay, listen, we gotta get out of here, guy. Thank you again, chat. Nick, thank you for having me here, man, to just sit and hang out with you. I love it so much. Thank you for all the work you put into this, brother. You guys be good, be safe, and we will catch you later. Nick,
take care, everyone.
The Nerd Frenzy Podcast.